Alright everybody, so I'm Cape Joel and we are back again for another week's worth of brand new Steven Universe reviews. Starting things off is the episode entitled Earthlings, which is of course the continuation of the events of Beta. As the episode opens up, we get the very rare opportunity to step into the mind of Jasper, the villain for this latest arc. She's still attempting to press gang a bunch of the corrupted gems into joining some sort of weird army that she's building. What's interesting is, a commenter in one of my last videos pointed out how these corrupted gem behemoths actually look a lot like Jasper. At first I thought it was, just a surface level thing, but in this episode we find out the behemoth monster is actually a corrupted quartz. It's the hair, man, it's all in the hair. In Jasper's speech, we really do get the feeling that she's a sort of gem supremacist, seeing herself as above everyone else and everything else. As she describes gem society and gem culture from her point of view, gems are not born into the world like other species scratching for meaning. They are created to serve one purpose, and that purpose is serve the diamonds. And in Jasper's very harsh worldview, any gem who would seek to break this caste system, either by living full-time as a fusion, coming out defective, or reforming themselves, are no gem at all in her eyes. They are subhuman, or sub-gem, however you want to take that. The irony of this situation is of course delicious, Jasper going on to no end about the power and strength of the homeworld and the Diamond Collective, even though she herself has been branded a failure by the very same authority that she claims to love, and yet she has no idea. Amethyst, despite all better judgment and tactics, still wants a one-on-one fight with Jasper in an attempt to repair her tarnished honor from a few episodes back. Peridot wants to help too, but she's having a much harder time of it. It's clear she doesn't have a full handle on her metal powers yet, but in the end she will actually make something pretty amazing happen. Amethyst throws absolutely everything she has at Jasper, but it just does nothing. It's Steven, level-headed voice of reason that he is, eventually telling Amethyst that she'll never win fighting Jasper on her terms. She should stop trying to be something she's not. She should just, well, be Amethyst. And it's this heartwarming pep talk that proves to be exactly what they need to kick off the first ever Steven fusion with another one of the crystal gems. First off, bravo to the show for waiting so long to play this card, and also I think it makes a lot of sense that Amethyst would be the first one for Steven to fuse with, especially after what's happened in this arc. I mean, we already established a couple episodes back that Steven and Amethyst are at pretty much the same level in terms of power and combat skill. Amethyst is also by far the most human of the crystal gems, and Steven has only fused with another human before, so it makes sense that this would be an easy transition. Everyone on the battlefield is shocked and amazed by this turn of events too, which I'm sure we can take to mean that gem hybrid fusions are incredibly rare. The new fusion they give birth to is called Smoky Quartz, and at first I thought they had run out of actual gem names and started making ones up. Nope, a Smoky Quartz is actually a real thing. At first I wasn't really in love with the design. I mean, I know what they were going for. In fact, I've seen some concept art just today wherein you can see that the Smoky Quartz is based on those, Asian lucky cats you see sometimes. Also, having to meld Steven's costume and Amethyst's costume don't quite work out as far as I'm concerned, but I grew to like it more as time went on. Smoky Quartz's very unique and quirky fighting style, FYI, their weapon of choice is a yo-yo, proves to be more than enough to bulldoze Jasper, who in her desperation decides to fuse with one of the corrupted gems, which, geez, I didn't even know that was possible. We're learning so much in this episode. Corruption by its very nature begins to spread to Jasper. Steven tries his hardest to save the evil gem, but she's not having any of it. Her final words, however, in the episode prove to be pretty powerful. She talks about how Rose took in a bunch of broken and forgotten gems and made them into an army. How you had to be at your absolute lowest before you could start to see things from the crystal gem's point of view, but moreover than that, she curses Rose for what she did to her own personal diamond. It's the last shot or so of Earthlings that I thought were the strongest for me. Amethyst bubbles Jasper's gem, but moreover than that, she refers to her as sis. And by the end of the episode, it's clear that's exactly what Jasper and Amethyst were, spiritual siblings. Both born on Earth, one defective, one superior. One who would grow to love Earth as the only home they ever knew, and one who would grow to despise eyes Earth as a prison. It's one of those real there but for the grace go I type situations. Amethyst could easily have been Jasper and vice versa. Earthlings overall was a really solid conclusion to this Amethyst Jasper kindergarten arc, one that was definitely punctuated by quite possibly the most important fusion we've seen in the show to date. Overall, I would give this one a very strong 8.5 out of 10. Now, the next episode up on the docket was called Back to the Moon, and what's interesting about this one is we kind of got a glimpse of this at the end of Earthlings. It seems that the Ruby Squad has returned to Earth, figuring out that the information that Steven had given them the last time they were there was pretty much a bunch of lies. What's funny about this is that even though the Ruby Squad works for Homeworld and are clearly the enemy antagonists of the episode, everyone pretty much agrees to handle them with kid gloves. I mean, they're just so adorable, and in fact they get even more adorable this episode because Steven gives them all nicknames. Our heroes once again decide that potential fighting and bloodshed should be avoided when they could just so easily trick the Rubies again like they did before. Granted, this scheme is going to be a lot more involved, Amethyst having to take the form of Jasper and trick the Rubies into thinking that she's her. What's compelling about this scenario is we actually get to hear about Jasper from the perspective of people who actually fought on her side during the Gem War. The Ruby Squad absolutely loves and looks up to Jasper like a war hero. A very important lesson, if you ask me, to impart in a quote-unquote kids show, that war is a dirty business where there are no blacks and whites. We are never as good as we believe, nor are our enemies as evil as we make them out to be. But I'll get more into that later on. The Rubies want to report back to Homeworld, which means going back to the Diamond Station on the moon. The Crystal Gems agree to come along as prisoners, which means they all get a chance to play possum, Pearl really loving it, throwing herself into the role completely and overacting at every turn. When they do make it to the station, however, that's when the Ruby Squad drops the bomb, and that is that during the Great Gem War, Rose Quartz, Steven's mother, actually drew first blood by shattering Pink Diamond. And from there, the rest of the episode pretty much plays out exactly like you think it would. The Rubies are about to leave before they realize they've been had. They attempt to start a fight, but Steven wants to blow them out of the airlock, clearly having seen one or two science fiction movies in his time. Unfortunately, this plan ends up boomeranging on Steven in a major way as he too gets pulled out the airlock as the episode ends. Back to the Moon was a funny episode with some good gags, and it also gave us an opportunity to get to know the Ruby Squad a bit more. They all have their own individual personalities going on. In fact, one of them gets jealous. There's also the addition to the lore and mythos, but we'll be dealing with that more in the next episode. Overall, though, I would give this one a 7.5 out of 10. Now, the third episode in this week's rollout of brand new Steven Universe episodes, and also technically the season finale of season 3, was called Bubbled, and it picks up with Steven and Eyeball not long after getting blown out of the airlock. Very early on, it was clear that this is what we call in television a bottle episode, wherein two or more characters are stuck in a very small space for the entirety of the episode. Granted, with Steven Universe, I suppose you could also call it a bubble episode. Oh, I'm funny sometimes. Once again, one of the great things that Bubbled is able to pull off is let us see the Great Gem War from the other side of the conflict, the home world perspective. Eyeball really does seem genuinely depressed and dejected at the idea that the Great Gem War isn't over yet. Nor will it ever be over so long as Crystal Gems and, in her mind, Rose Quartz continue to live. Steven, showing great sympathy even to his enemies, tries to put Eyeball's mind at ease in an attempt to offer her a sense of closure on Rose and the war. This sadly gets Steven nowhere, and later on in the episode, when Eyeball gets injured in an asteroid field, Steven further attempts to save her life by repairing the crack in her gem. You know what, it's funny, I never thought of it before, but Eyeball brings up an interesting point here, that Rose's army, a small guerrilla force that they were only able to challenge the homeworld because of Rose's amazing healing abilities. A power that by the sounds of it is incredibly rare even amongst gems and made Rose a favorite of Pink Diamond. Now, chances are if you've ever seen a science fiction show like this where two enemies from two different factions are forced to stay together for a long period of time, then you might have guessed by the end of it they end up, seeing something in each other that they respect and leave, as friends in the end. Only that's the funny thing about Bubbled and Steven Universe in general, they swerve you pretty great. You think Eyeball would be grateful, but instead she takes this opportunity getting close to Steven to try and kill him by summoning a dagger from her eye gem. That's interesting mean? Does that mean you get different weapons depending on where the gem is on your body? I think it says a lot about Eyeball as a character when she's about to kill Steven. She says that, this will make her a hero back on homeworld, that the diamonds will probably give her her very own pearl. I think it speaks to her own inferiority complex and just how low on the military totem pole rubies are, that this, if she was able to pull off this assassination, would have been the greatest thing any ruby's ever done. This is also now the third in a line of gems that Steven has been unable to turn to the good side. He failed with Bismuth, he failed with Jasper, and now he's failed with Eyeball. And to think up until this point he's had an almost Goku level streak of turning enemies into friends. This is just, more sobering proof that you can't change everybody. It's got to especially sting with a character like Eyeball, who up until now has been more silly than threatening, to think that she came closer than just about anyone else to ending Steven. Eventually the crystal gems do manage to find Steven and pick him up. Oop, and they're also up one spaceship now. It's really at this point the episode does feel like a finale, as they cut out most of the actual dialogue and instead replace it with "learn how to love like you" for great effect in my mind. In the closing minutes of Bubble 2, Steven manages to work up the courage to ask Garnet about his mother and Pink Diamond, only to hear the crushing truth that yes, indeed, his mother did shatter another gem. Garnet swears up and down that Rose did what she did for the right reason, that she did it for the Earth and for her friends, but Steven is going to have to live now with the fact that the saintly Rose was not so saintly. A harsh truth that I think a lot of kids begin to realize around Steven's age, that our parents are not the superheroes we build them up to be in our minds. They are flawed, they are people with their own issues and demons. But hopefully by learning from their mistakes, we can grow to be better than them, in time at least. Bubbled overall was a really strong episode, one that puts the focus solely on character. But they don't forget to pile on the jokes either. Steven got a really good laugh out of me with his phone plan joke, and I mean, him and Eyeball just have a really solid odd couple relationship going on. Also, as a finale for season 3, I think it would have gone out as a great little exclamation point. Of course, the Steven bombs being the way they are in Cartoon Network's weird release schedule of this show, it's not the last episode we're going to be covering. Overall, though, I would be happy to give this one a 9 out of 10. Now, the penultimate episode in this week's rollout of Steven Universe episodes was entitled The Kindergarten Kid, and as we join the episode, we're right back at Kindergarten Beta, with the crystal gems attempting to clean up the mess left behind by Jasper and the corrupted gems. It all goes pretty easy except for one particularly nasty and mischievous blue corrupted gem, one that Peridot makes it her mission to hunt down. No doubt this is Peridot trying to earn back a little self-respect after her continued inability to master her metal powers when it really counts. Hey, wait a minute. Blue creature, a bunch of harebrained schemes to catch said blue creature, a desert backdrop. Oh my god, this is a giant Roadrunner and Coyote tribute episode. Wow, and up until now I thought Steven Universe only did shoutouts and references to old anime, but oh man, classic Warner Brothers cartoons, sign me right the hell up. Just call her Peridot E-Gem Genius, because she has all sorts of harebrained schemes to try and catch this corrupted gem, all which backfire on her in hilarious fashion, so much to the point Steven has to ask, hey, how come none of this poofs you? It seems like in other episodes this sort of damage would poof, but not here. Also, hey, being only half gem myself, what would happen if I got poofed? Now, near the end of the episode, the show does try and offer up more than just some classic cartoon gags. There is some stuff with Steven attempting to share his, newfound sympathy for the corrupted gems with Peridot, who, as we can see, has become so damn obsessed with catching this blue creature that she's developed a sort of tunnel vision. Eventually, Steven hits upon the idea of trying to tell Peridot that when she first came to Earth, her and the corrupted gems were not so different. They were all scared, grasping at straws, etc., and that perhaps the best way for Peridot to catch this monster is to think like this monster. After so many serious episodes in a row, The Kindergarten Kid ended up being a very enjoyable and very much needed breather episode that paid homage to some of the finest cartoon forefathers. Overall, I would give this one a very solid 7 out of 10, and it definitely ends up being one of the better shenanigan-based episodes to feature the gems in it. And finally, this week in the rollout of brand new Steven Universe episodes, we have Know Your Fusion. It picks up with Steven and Amethyst wanting to introduce the others to Smoky Quartz, their brand new fusion, and rightly so. Pearl and Garnet are freaked the hell out at this idea. Well, okay, Pearl is freaked out. Garnet is really excited because, well, she's just gaga for fusion, isn't she? But you gotta admit, this whole, human gem, a hybrid thing is pretty amazing. Also, I was just crunching the numbers in my head, and technically Smoky Quartz would be 75% gem and 25% human, but hey, let's not get bogged down in math now, everybody. Smokey, in case you didn't know, is voiced by Natasha Lyonne, better known as Nikki from Orange is the New Black. Wow, 2 Orange is the New Black actresses within the span of just a couple episodes. That's amazing. I hope they get Red to voice a Diamond. Now, as we've learned about fusions in past episodes, they are essentially new people with their own wants and needs and personalities, and because of that, Sardonyx, the fusion of Garnet and Pearl, want to actually get to know Smokey as well as possible. And to help do this, we get a whole episode-long meta-gag involving that room of requirement that exists in the temple. In this case, Sardonyx chooses to make it a nighttime talk show. It's kind of funny, even though we're seeing the whole cast that we normally see in the show, they're fused together into different people, and because of that, we get a completely different dynamic going on. We'd only seen a bit of Sardonyx in Cry for Help, but we got a pretty good handle on her character. She's a bit of a show-off. I mean, she's wearing a tuxedo and, you know, doing magic tricks. Of course she wants to be the center of attention. What she essentially ends up doing is hijacking Smokey's big debut and making something that should be about Steven and Amethyst all about her. There are points too where Know Your Fusion kind of plays out like a clip show, where we actually do get clips from other fusions from other episodes with little joke underlines saying, you know, courtesy of Cartoon Network. By far the best joke for me was the one involving Sugalad, who was voiced by Nicki Minaj and who they have never had back on the show, and yet who they joke even in this episode they might have to pay for reusing her voice clips. Another thing about fusions that get highlighted in this episode is how, you know, all the personality traits and quirks of the two people involved in the fusion get amplified when together. For Steven and Amethyst, it's a lot of their jokiness to mask their own insecurities. Something that Leone pulls off absolutely expertly in this episode. In the end, when Sardonyx realizes that she was kind of being a jerk this whole time, it causes her fusion to split, which is unfortunate because as they were in the room of requirement, the whole thing is going to crumble around their ears now with no person to maintain it. And from there, everything gets all wrapped up in a nice little bow as Smokey Quartz has to come to the rescue and show off exactly what she can do. Know Your Fusion was ultimately a really out there episode in terms of concept. It's kind of a clip show, as I mentioned. It's kind of an actual interview show. I do, if nothing else, feel like I walked away with a better understanding of both of these characters. It's just so odd on so many levels, and I think some fans are going to absolutely eat that up. Overall, I would feel comfortable giving this one a 7.5 out of 10. And with that, everyone, that will be just about it for me in another week's worth of brand new Steven Universe episodes. Keep in mind that from here on out, the show will go back to premiering on Thursdays now. So until then, thank you all for watching, and I will be back again. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching my newest video. I hope you enjoyed it, and while you're here, why not check out another video I have on offer, or maybe if you're feeling in a supportive mood, you want to like or subscribe. And if you want to support the creation of more videos just like this one, then please by all means check out the Cape Joel Patreon. A little bit goes a very long way, and I will see you all next time.